if you're struggling with something right now, if you're frustrated with the hardships in your life right now, if you're wondering why in the world God is not doing something to alleviate your pain right now, if you're plagued by worry and anxiety, if you're frustrated and exhausted trying to control people and it's not working, this lesson is for you and for me. Yeah. As I've been doing some Bible reading through both the Old and the New Testament, I've discovered something kind of interesting, a kind of aha revelation. My big revelation is this. It's the first blank in your outline. God never wastes dark valley experiences. God never wastes dark valley experiences. He always has a plan. And isn't that great news? Because in the dark valley, you're like, what in the world is going on here? You might even use different language. Like, why is this happening, right? And yet God has a plan, and He never wastes the dark valley experience. So we're going to just go through 4 simple but profound Bible insights tonight. And the first one is this. Often we get super angry or throw ourselves a pity party. Anyone else really good at that? I am. If our life takes an unexpected detour, or maybe even our day takes an unexpected detour, only to find out later that God was orchestrating that detour for our actual benefit. That God was actually orchestrating the detour in our day, in our life, for our actual benefit. Because God has a plan during hardship. Let me tell on myself, because this is not a great story about me, this is actually, I'm going to just tell you how stupid I am. But this was also part of the aha revelation. So, about a week ago or so, I went to the lake house and with my son and his kids, and we had a great time there, and we're leaving, and I know that I have to get back to a small group that is hosted at my house. I have to be back by 6 o'clock, by no later, because it's hosted at my house, and I usually provide the dinner. And so I'm like, okay, I will, clean up the lake house, and I'll drive back, and my son left about 45 minutes before me, and I'm behind him, but I'm still, according to my Google navigation, I'm going to get home 2 hours ahead of time, so there should be no problems. Until there's an accident up ahead, about 30 minutes away from the lake house, and they say detour. I'm like, okay.
Oh no.
We're in a very rural area, keep in mind, very rural. And so a bunch of cars, we all go on the detour. And we're going miles on this road when there's no other, and then turn here signs. So just detour and figure it out yourself. And so I'm like, I'm doing what probably everyone else is doing. Well, let's just enter it in our Google navigation, my home address, and it'll show me the best way to get there. So I enter it in, and it looks really odd. Like it says, turn back and go back toward the lake house 20 miles. I'm like, this can't be right. But I start going that way, and it just doesn't seem right, And so I'm like, getting really frustrated, because already it's saying that it's going to get me there only about a half an hour before my event starts at my house. And I'm like, so I'm getting really irritated. I am so weird. I will just tell myself on this too. Sometimes the big things don't get me irritated, but the little things, they get me so irritated. So I'm starting to boil. And so I finally called my son. I said, did you hit the same detour? Oh, yeah, we did, but don't worry, even though it takes you way out of your way, we got back to Spokane, got back on the road, and we're doing okay. I'm like, okay, even though this seems so weird. But it didn't seem right, and so, I do what other people do when they're frustrated. Like if you're in the checkout line and the other one seems like it's going faster, you have to switch. So I'm like, this can't be right. And so I hit this little thing that says, do you prefer a different route? And I'm like, yes, I do. So now I'm going really far out of my way, and I'm not on I-90, which I should be back on I-90. Now I'm headed, it looks like, to the North Cascades Highway, which takes way longer, and so now I'm fuming. Steam is coming out of my ears. I'm yelling at God.
Yeah.
This is probably not the best thing to do, because I'm like, how could you allow this to happen? I'm hosting a small group trying to do ministry at my house tonight. I can't believe that you took me on this route. You knew this was going to happen. I'm just like, it was not good. It was not one of my finer moments. So I'm fuming for hours. Hours. I'm so irritable. Luckily, there was no one in the car with me, because that would have been embarrassing. But I'm just like fuming. And then it's about an hour away from my destination. I'm going to make it home by the skin of my teeth, get it there in time. And my son calls and says, are you still behind me? Because we're stuck behind a huge accident in Seattle. Both lanes of the freeway are blocked, and we're not going to be able to get back to Bellingham until 8 o'clock tonight. And I'm like, oh, no, actually, I'm going to make it home in time, because my navigation actually took me a different way that I thought was really, really dumb. But apparently God knew what he was doing all along. So, thank you, God, for that. Sorry about the attitude problem. Has anyone else ever done anything stupid like that? So I'm telling myself. But the point is this. Sometimes we have an unexpected detour, and often God actually orchestrates it for our benefit. Isaiah 55:9. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. God is a little bit smarter than me. God is a little bit smarter than you. Sometimes that detour is because he says, actually, I'm trying to plan something that's going to be really, really good for you. So stop fighting me. Romans 11:33 says, oh, how great are God's riches and wisdom and knowledge. How impossible it is for us to understand his decisions and his ways. Because we don't. Because we only see this far. And God sees a little farther than we do. And he's like, I'm on top of it. Stop panicking. Just trust in me. Okay, I'm a little slow to get to that. So here's our application point. When you're growing angry, sinking into self-pity about an unexpected development in your life, coach your soul to trust the God who created the universe, to know what he's doing. Trust him. And then watch and wait with hopeful anticipation. I wonder what you're up to, God. I wonder what you're up to, God.
I guess we're going to ask.
Okay, so here we go. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Bible insight number 2. When you seem stuck in a dark valley or hopeless situation, realize God may have allowed or even designed this valley to mature you and make you a stronger warrior for his kingdom. Yes, because God has a plan during hardship. And sometimes it is to mature you, that you become spiritually mature so that you can be effectively used by God, right? So let me tell myself again. So when I first became divorced, way back in 2002, been not a good marriage. I was married to a serial cheater, and of course I blamed him for everything because, well, that was easy to do because he was a serial cheater. I, of course, was pretty much an angel and had nothing to play, no role to play in this divorce, right? Anyway, after I got divorced, and I'm like having that pity party, like, how did this happen to me? I'm such a nice person. How did this happen to me? And I'm just, sitting there mourning and kind of angry and depressed and all these things. I felt like God came to me and said, there are some things that you could learn. What? You're talking to me? I could learn something? Okay. And so God sat with me and started to teach me ways that I had been dysfunctional in the relationship. I had been a humongous conflict avoider. I didn't even know that term before God revealed it to me. I'm like, well, that does kind of describe me, I guess. I guess that could maybe be a little problem. And God started to walk me through, like, you know what, if you ever want to be married again, you have to deal with this. You have to figure out what your dysfunctions are. You can't be sweeping everything under the rug and just hoping everything gets better. I had never told anyone about all the stuff going on in my marriage. I had hidden everything. Just sweep it under the rug. Just sweep it under the rug. I'm sure it'll get better. I'll just pray that God will make it better. Well, God wanted me to deal with it. And so I started to learn how to overcome being a conflict avoider. God started to mature me in that area. So he used that dark valley for a purpose, to mature me. And guess what? As I became more mature in that area, I call myself a recovering conflict avoider. I might not be perfect in that area yet, but guess what he's done? He built me into a stronger warrior for his kingdom that I can share with other women about overcoming being a conflict avoider. And healthier marriages are the result. So God has a plan. Remember the story of Joseph in the book of Genesis? I'm sure most of you have read that story. But in his story, just to do the quick synopsis, he's wrongfully thrown or sold into slavery in Egypt by his brothers, terrible brothers. I'm sure he was very bitter and resentful. Who would not be bitter and resentful if their brothers sold them into slavery, right? So he sold as a slave. Basically, to make a long story short, he ends up in the dungeon over there for years. Some scholars think he was 12 years as a prisoner. That is a long time, right? But listen to what it says in Psalm 105, referring to Joseph. It says, he sent a man before them, Joseph. This is God. God sent a man before them, Joseph, who was sold as a slave. They forced his feet into shackles. He was put in irons until the time that his word came to pass. The word of the Lord refined him. And I got to thinking, Joseph was sitting in prison. He could have had the biggest pity party ever. He could have come out of prison the most bitter and resentful man who ever walked in the face of the earth, because a great injustice had been done to him. But God used that time to refine him. And guess what the result is? When his brothers came to him begging for food years later, would you have been gracious and said, yes, I opened the green fields wide open for you, and I bless you, and I want to help you? We would have been like, you stinking dirty rats, I'm going to punish you, I'm going to chop your heads off. That's probably how we would have reacted. But Joseph had allowed that period of hardship to refine him. And so his response was not full of revenge. His response was kind and gracious because he allowed the dark valley experience to refine him and mature him. And I thought about my dark valley struggles. You probably heard this expression. It can either make you bitter or better. Which does it make you? Bitter or better? Isaiah 48:10 says, behold, I have refined you, but not as silver. I have tried you in the furnace of affliction. So sometimes God allows a dark valley for a purpose. He says, I want to mature you. I want to grow you. I want to refine you. So the application, when going through something really hard, ask God with eager expectation to teach you valuable lessons. Ask Him with eager expectation to teach you valuable lessons, to mature you, to mold you into a stronger disciple. And then, after you've asked Him to do that, be super alert to His whispers through the Holy Spirit, what He's trying to teach you. As you read the Bible each day, read it with great expectancy, trusting that God's going to reveal these deep, guiding, refining, maturing truths to you, truths that will mature you and allow you to be a better used servant of the Lord if we choose. Because we can choose to be bitter. That's so easy. The rest of the world does that. Or we can choose to be better. Allow God to mature us. Bible insight number 3. When you're feeling like God has abandoned you and you don't know if you can bear up under the weight of your challenge, realize that God may be testing you. Testing you to see if you're fickle or faithful. To see if your trust in Him is just lip service or tenacious, like steadfast. Because God has a plan during hardship. I know I've shared this before, but when Raul passed, I had several women actually asked me if I was still going to be involved in ministry. They assumed that I would be so angry with God that I was done. And honestly, that thought never crossed my mind because I trust God with all my heart. And I'm not just paying it lip service, and I'm not fickle. It's like, you know what? I trust the Lord. He has a plan, and I am not going to let Satan shake me because I believe that was part of Satan's plan, is to shake me. Like, oh, we'll see if she'll remain faithful if you take her husband away. And I'm like, well, yes, I will, because it's like that fighting thing in me is like, you will not win this battle, enemy. You will not win this battle, Satan. Some of you might feel like you're overwhelmed in a different way, that you're feeling abandoned, that you're feeling distraught, and you're feeling like, again, could be that the enemy has asked permission to sift you. 1 Peter 1, starting in verse 6. In all this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while you may have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials. These have come so that the proven genuineness of your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed. In other words, sometimes God allows things to prove the genuineness of your faith. Are you just there during the happy times where you feel like God's blessing you? Or will you stay true to the Lord when you don't quite understand what He is up to at the moment? Luke 22, you might remember this story. Jesus is talking to Peter, also known as Simon. He says, Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift all of you as wheat. But I have prayed for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers. And of course, the entire book of Job, for those of you who've read the book of Job in the Bible, it's all about Satan asking God for permission to sift Job, because basically, Satan is taunting God, saying, oh yeah, the only reason that Job is staying true to you is because he has everything he wants. He's got a great family, he's rich, everything's wonderful for him, but if you take it all away, he's not going to worship you anymore. He's basically taunting God. And God says, okay, go ahead and sift him. And man, sometimes we feel a little like Job. I've referred to myself as Job on occasion when I feel like, oh, I'm just suffering so much. I was like, wait a minute. I wonder if Satan has asked God, oh, just sift that Debbie Chavez. She won't stay true to you if you take away her husband or take away her family or whatever. And it's like, I'm not letting the enemy win this battle. So, what is the application here? When you're feeling pressed, persecuted, overwhelmed, realize this is an opportunity to show the devil that you will not be intimidated by him or be lured away from your trust in Almighty God. In fact, I say double down on your willingness to serve the Lord and stay true to him. I mean, just double down. Doesn't it just make you angry? Doesn't it just make you angry and just have this righteous indignation when you feel like the devil is sifting you? It's like, I will not be deterred from my faith in the Lord.